The Immortal Empires Beta is bringing us a chance to play all 3 games in one, and with it, an overhaul to a lot of the existing mechanics for some of the older races of the Warhammer world. In this video, I'm going to cover the mechanics that have been changed by the advent of the Immortal Empires, as outlined in the blog post by Creative Assembly. You can jump ahead to any portion of the video that interests you the most by using the chapters in the timeline and the description. I've broken the video up into each respective race, starting with a general overview of the new UI and changes to it that are coming alongside the beta. This should outline most, if not all, the changes, but the game is still in development, so some stuff might be tweaked by the time launch hits August 23rd. And if you intend on picking up the Champions of Chaos, or COC DLC, coming out and want to support the channel, you can find a link to Creative Assembly's reseller program that will give you a Steam or Epic Game Store key for whichever platform you prefer. Please, guys, only pre-order if you're definitely going to get the game. Feel free to wait for any kind of reviews or the actual launch, as this link will work for 1 week after launch as well. Let's get going here on all changes in Immortal Empires. Opening us up with just general UI changes to the game, you can see that this is the start menu, and it's already entirely different for Total War Warhammer. So I can go ahead and press campaign, we can press new, and we have the Lost Gods, the Realm of Chaos, the Immortal Empires. I click this, and it's a really nice presentation. I like this a lot more. I have the map button I can press here and see exactly where they start on the map, and I can press these buttons and it kind of just jumps around. So this is a lot more user-friendly, a little bit more streamlined. I just really appreciate this, I think, a lot more than the previous way of doing things, right? Like, I know exactly where this is. I can just simply press back and forth to these tabs, and even get the little bit of lore on the character too, as well as the faction itself. So things are just kind of tucked away a little bit neater. I will say though, if I just press start campaign, I wouldn't have really gone through how to edit any settings, which I'd have to press over here, and then that kind of gives me a better idea of what each setting is here. Also, a lot of these campaign settings have been blown out a lot more, right? We can turn off the Black Pyramid, A Grudge Too Far, Biggest Wall, Wild Hunt, Vampiric Ascension. So you can shut these things off, trigger a long victory, turn timer range, early warning timer. So you have all these different things. You can even shut off the sea lanes, endgame scenarios. So I do really appreciate this. This is a huge kind of baked in innovation that I think a lot of us would have had to wait for a mod. So I do very much like that here. The in-game scenarios. For those wondering how long, well, I guess I'll show you, but the turn timer is about like 20 seconds. You know, it's not very long at all. But let's jump into a quick campaign here with Imric, and I'll just kind of quickly go over some other little highlights for the campaign UI, and we'll talk about those in a little bit more depth. Okay, here we are in the Imric campaign, and all the campaigns currently start just like this. Where it just kind of zooms in like that, and just you're good to go. So I don't know if that's something that's going to change in the future or not. I don't know if you guys care, but I just wanted to at least show you how each campaign starts out. And let's take a look at some things. So when we go ahead and click on technology tree, we see this look really kind of nice background here, and every single race has got a different one, and it just overall has a nice feel to it. You have the different color scheme here, the way that this kind of highlights, just to kind of show off every little thing that I can think of. That's right there. Again, most of the other stuff is the same for the most part when we look at most things. But when we go ahead and click on the building browser, we can see that this looks a little bit nicer, a little bit more clear cut as what I'm selecting right here, rather than just a blinking icon that it was before. So it's got that nice little border around it. So you have all those kind of just very upfront distinctions. And the reason I've chosen High Elves to explain this, aside from the fact that it's my favorite race, is that there's been no real big changes to the High Elves. But you can see in the background, you get that same kind of image repeated from the technology tree. And let's go ahead and jump into some options here. So I can change the UI if I don't like it. So we can go to green. There we go. And the green is now present in all the things that it was prior, right? Where that blue was. So you can just go ahead and switch this over if you don't want to deal with, oh, you know what? I don't really want to play a damn blue UI. That hurts my eyes. Maybe you want to go to red again, or maybe you want to go back into blue. So every faction will have a different choice of one of those three UIs, which I think is really kind of nice. I do appreciate the fact that we'll be able to hopefully edit those UIs a lot more, and we'll start to see some pretty crazy UI editing in the future. Unit banner scale, I don't remember if that was there in the past. I can't recall, but it's here now. And you have that option to do that if you so wish. Now, another big thing is, let's go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and auto-resolve here. Again, nothing here new that I can remember. And that also kind of colored that little animation right there, right? And I'll just press. And we'll see if I can just go ahead and do this right away. Hopefully we should be able to. And for those that have missed it, in a lot of the Let's Plays for the Champions of Chaos characters, you get it back. All of the cool little flavor images, rather than those kind of generic embossed images in this section, we get this back from Warhammer 2. So we can see that. Is that an endless clinking of gold? Well, that'll be a bug. But you can see here that this is different. Loot and Occupy now grants replenishment. And I can't remember if it always did and then SAC gave you a higher amount of replenishment. But I do like that Loot and Occupy now does give you that a bit of replenishment there. We're going to Loot and Occupy because that is an annoying clinking sound of money. There we go, it stopped. Oh my gosh. But that's just kind of some of the general overviews for the UI. Just changes here and there. Nothing crazy. All the other conventions of Warhammer 3 have been brought into this, but I just really wanted to kind of show off that the different technology panel looks a little bit more robust. The actual skill tree itself too. When you're taking a look at it, you've got the ability to search skills now, you know, all that fun stuff, and searching technologies, and highlighting these is a little bit more. It's taken back its old color scheme, right? So this is blue, this is red, this is yellow. Like we've got that, rather than just having like a red bar all the way across. It's a little bit more punchy with its color choices, so you can actually see it kind of fits in with that old Warhammer 1 and 2 aesthetic that I think a lot of us really liked, myself included. And we get the clear-cut choice of what the quest armor is going to be. So following all the other kind of nice conventions of Warhammer 3's character management has now made itself, of course, here. Now remember too, this isn't something that's new to this patch, but if you did not play the previous patches, you now automatically are granted these mount options. So just to highlight this, it's already in the game right now, but just to kind of highlight it. So let's jump into the first of the improved, or I guess kind of like low-key rework for some of the races in the undead, in the vampire counts, because they have quite a few little overhauls and tweaks. Actually, something I forgot before we move over to the vampire counts is the turn timer. So I'm going to go ahead and press end turn here, and we're going to see how long this takes. Keep in mind, this is turn 1. So with what, 270 some odd factions on the map, it's going to, the turn timer is only going to get shorter per turn you go through the campaign. So let's go ahead and press end turn. And I have gone ahead and pressed start on a stopwatch, and it's about like a 20-25 seconds, I believe, and it's going to get choppy here. It's going to start, it's going to stammer. As you can see, again, 272 total factions, and we are done. So that was 16 total seconds and 83 milliseconds if we're counting for a single turn in Immortal Empires, which is way better than Mortal Empires launch when Warhammer 2 jumped out. So let's move again now over to the vampire counts. So to open us up for the vampire counts, we're going to take a look at the building browser. And I can't remember off the top of my head all of these little changes, but we get an idea now of how things work. You can get the corpse cart already at tier 1 for the defiled Karen. I think that's pretty new. Almost sounds like I said defiled Karen. Other things are already here. We have the Black Knights, we've got White Kings and the Black Knights over in the tier 2 Ancient Armory. I think that is new as well. Graveguard and the Graveguard Great Weapons are still up in that tier 3 for the Mausoleum. But they have had the restriction of, I believe in the past, in order to get the Graveguard, you had to also have an Ancient Armory. You don't need that anymore that I can see. And I don't think, I can't remember if they had changed that prior to this or not, but I'm just trying to highlight some of the changes around with the recruitment buildings for, say, like the Mortis engines and the Necromancer. That you could always get it here at the Lich Yard, I believe. Maybe actually it was the ossuary at tier 3. But nonetheless, this is how this is all kind of shaken out for the building browser now. And for those curious, Mausoleum of the Mad Count, and also von Karstein Court Hall. I don't know if the stats of those have changed, but I know some people would probably want to see the hoverovers on those, so I've done that for just you. Now, looking at the technology tree, we get quite a lot of shuffling around. This one hasn't really changed much at all, so I'm not even going to... In fact, I've looked at it, that did not change. But when we look at the Book of Archon, that in and of itself changes, and each one of these has changed in some way, shape, or form. So I'm just going to quickly hover over these. The route for this one, I think by and large, is mostly the same. But we look at the Liber Necronomica, we will see that it is much different. And a lot of this stuff kind of comes down to the raised dead pool capacity increases and stuff like that, which is nice. And we're going to look at the new raised dead mechanic in just a little bit here. But now for the Liber Necronomica, you can see that this now has the dead rise again. The same thing that Helm and Gorse benefits from, this is now just part of a technology. So this will actually even stack. And the route for this technology is now different. It used to be, okay, you do the Liber, then you do the incantations of Ashoron, and then you do the rest, which is kind of still that way, but it was its own separate technology that then branched into 2 or 3. So you can now instead go up here or down here, and then go into these. And I'm just going to quickly hover over them for you guys. Pause the video, go back to the ones that you really want to look at, but for the most part, a lot of these have changed, especially like barrier hit points. Barriers have been introduced to way more factions, especially the Lizardmen when we talk about them much later in this video. Lamian Book of Blood, Servant Life or Death, and then Blood is Power. He's kind of just jumping over these really fast for you guys. Turning out the orders has not changed at all. I checked that one. But here you go. Spread Vampire Covenants has changed because now it gives you alliance points, which is pretty cool. And there you go. That is the new technology tree for the vampire counts. We've gone over the building browser, we've gone over the technology tree, but let's take a look over here at Vlad von Karstein, who is our legendary lord, the character that we're having lead our faction. But if I also click over, we have Isabella von Karstein as a legendary hero. I prefer heroic hero. I'm going to stick with my marketing moniker until they decide to change it. In the army that just kind of gets all the effects that you would. It's quite nice. You have access to all of her skills. There have been some kind of swap ups with the skills. I cannot tell you what they were off the top of my head. But we're going to kind of just quickly eke through Vladdy Daddy's real quick. Take a look at all of his stuff. Just gonna hover over it for you. Storm of the Night. I think that is a new Vortex ability. I think that's the one that the von Karstein generic Lord gets. There you go. And Lore Master Lord Vampires. There you go. Grave Ward, Dark Pack, or Dark Majesty Diviner. And then now for Isabella, Midnight's Children. At dawn they sleep. Port of Blood, the Ravening Beast, Storm of the Night again, and then Time of Rising. She gets up to the Hellsteed with the Queen Bee trait, or of Dark Majesty, and then the Grave Guard. Everything else, for the most part, seems to be the same kind of generic stuff you would expect on characters. I am quickly, though, going to look at this, because this includes Zombies, Skeletons, Crypt Ghouls, and Grave Guard. I believe it always was that way. But feel free to correct me in the comment section if you so wish, and it was not that way, but just to kind of show it off, because I know some people will be curious about it, and just to make sure that we hit all the stuff. There you go. I think for the rest of this, though, that's all pretty standard fare stuff. It's the same. I know Necrarch was there. I know a lot of this changed with the vampire counts rework, so I think we're all good right there. But just to kind of show those characters and their stuff, the traits and what have you. 50% battle healing when in an army with Isabella von Karstein, which is pretty nice. And I think she has a matching one. I know she does. Dark Retinue. Yeah, there we go. And increases the melee attack and melee defense, of course, for embedded vampire heroes, which is pretty spicy. But let's go ahead and click Raise Dead. So now when we look at Raise Dead, we see these percentages, right? There's a 51% chance that one of this unit will become available for recruitment next turn. Same thing here with the zombies, about 66, 10%. There's a chance that another one. So you have the chance of these things appearing more over time every turn versus, okay, it's got to be a huge battle, and if it's a huge battle, there's going to be a lot of stuff to pull from. So this raised dead mechanic is nice because it allows it to kind of evolve over time, and it has a little bit more punch to it. And I think I appreciate that more rather than, okay, I've got to really hope I get a big battle here to get some really good recruitment, and then that can really give me a power spike. And if I don't hit that power spike, I really kind of suffer behind. So I like that that's kind of been shaken up a little bit, not stirred. Outside of that, though, pretty much most things are the same that I can think of. Oh, bloodlines. So I'm going to look at all rank 3 of each one of these. And what you'll notice is I haven't selected a single bloodline, and the base first bloodline cost is 3. Now, I can't recall if that's been changed since the Vampire rework, but it used to be 1 for your first bloodline selection, and then it was 3, 6, and 9, I think it was, and they just went up by 3 every time. But I just want to show you all 3 of these. Mainly the big changes I've noticed is the Strigoi, and that they have raised dead pool capacity, change for crypt ghouls and crypt units and crypt horrors, all the same stuff like that. But just to kind of show those off for you guys. And let's jump into some of the other lords, starting with Helmengorst, to give you a perspective on some of the things that have changed for other characters in this faction. For Manfred von Karstein, we get the things that we know we're getting with the increased magic reserve right here on his campaign effects, and Dark Acolyte granting him the Master of Black Arts, which is a 25% spell mastery. For his skills, things are mainly the same, but you look at Dark Knight. Well, I'll go from the left to right. Hunger here, then Devastating Charge, Dark Knight, Beguile, Quick Blood. These are things that have always been with him, and it's like the generic yellow line, right? And it allows him just to kind of get abilities since he's a hybrid lord, but he only gets 2 blips rather than the 3 that he had prior in Warhammer 2. Bloodlust and, Master Strike, Curse the Revenant, Supernatural Horror, Blade Shield, and Red Fury. Those things have been there. But I just wanted to kind of point out that he now has the difference of less blips on there, less points needed or required or to be invested. I just wanted to kind of, again, to say it again, point it out. We have Lore Master of Lore of Death, Lore Master Lore of Death on him, Lore Master Lore of Vampires, because he gets both those to kind of dip into, or Dark Majesty, Dark Pact, Grave Ward, and then Zombie Dragon. But Manfred von Karstein hasn't had a ton of changes, but I just wanted to quickly show those off. So let's also show off some Krell action, Gorse, all that fun action. So for Helmengorst, we have some fun little things that have hit him. He, of course, has his Straight Neophyte, which gives him immune to contact effects, which is pretty sexual. Armor for zombie and crypt ghouls, of course, and all these nice campaign effects. Like the Dead Rise Again, 7% chance for destroyed units to be restored after battle. Also upkeep reduction for zombies, and recruitment costs and reductions, and raising dead cost reductions all across the board. But when we jump over to his skills, we get some other fun stuff. Mainly his Master of the Dead ability here. So for the first one, it gets the passive ability Master of the Dead, which is a heal per second of 0.05% in a 35-meter radius around him. Also, Awaken from the Grave gives him summon a unit of Grave Guards. Now then, when he upgrades this, it increases his number of uses for Awaken from the Grave, so he can now summon 4 total units of Grave Guard, and he gets an increase on the range for Master of the Dead. Also, target range plus 200% for Awaken from the Grave, and Awaken from the Grave upgraded. Also, again, we know that Awaken from the Grave is going to get upgraded to allow him to overcast it to summon a White King. Thrall Master over here, it's top tier level 2, allows for Dead Rise Again, 15% recruitment cost reductions and Dead Raise Dead costs, and Lord of the Scourge is also going to give all of these bonuses here to zombies and casualty replenishment. And just to really quickly go through this line of skills, I'm just going to hover over them for you guys. You can kind of just see what's going to be happening here. You can see that zombies are going to get quite the buff from him, mainly towards their battle healing cap, which is very nice. And then ever onward for some plenty of other delightful trees, especially the Ravenous Dead ability for the zombie units, which is not new, but I'm just kind of highlighting it nonetheless. But this is your Helmengorst, in case you are wondering what he looks like in Immortal Empires. For Heinrich Himmler, we have a bunch of stuff here for him, right? Of course, he has his trait for Wanderer, which gives him Lord of Undeath right out the gate now. He no longer has to invest points to get access to Krell. He just gets him. Also, recruitment costs, raise dead costs, a lot of the same stuff that we saw with Gorst is activated here, and it's because of one skill we'll go into in just a little bit. But spell dead uses for raised dead and upgraded raised dead is +2, battle healing cap plus 50%, and wins a magic cost reduction for lower vampires. And he gets the same thing, Thrallmaster and Lord of Scourge, that Gorst had. But when we look at the Eternal Bastion, it's going to immediately give an upgrade to Krell at rank 12. Then Perpetual Regeneration, which gives regen to both Karen Race and Hex Race, as well as to Kemlar himself. Then Borrow Kings, Seeker of Secrets, White Blades, and then Return of the Lich Master. So that covers all of our vampire counts. Let's talk about some Dark Elves. Switching gears here over to the Dark Elves, like I was saying, we'll start off with the mother of the Druchii in Morathi. Now, Morathi does get a lot more interactions with Slaanesh, as kind of befitting her more later 8th edition conventions that have her more aligned with Slaanesh. So taking a look at her character, well, that looks pretty good. Might be getting lost in the 3D portholes over here, which sounds like a euphemism. I'm not in the right screen at all. What I meant to do is click this. So when it comes to corruption, we can see that she gets an income from slaves. That's one of the big interactions when it comes to Slaaneshi corruption. But if I go ahead and click on the building browser here, just to show this off, I'm pretty sure Catacombs of Quintex hasn't changed one bit, but just to kind of show it off nonetheless, she gets this new line of buildings. The Cultist Gathering for the Cult of Pleasure. And you'll see this allows her to recruit Demoness of Slaanesh. This is where the Death Hag is now recruited. And where she gets Witch Elves, as well as Exalted Demoness of Slaanesh, which ultimately culminate in the Court of the Dark Prince, unlocks recruitment of the Death Hag, control 10, heal capacity for Death Hag, and recruitment rank increased, as well as Slaanesh corruption increase, as well as increase in the adjacent provinces, which is pretty sexual. Now, outside of what she offers, we now get the new 3 slave Ditkas. So if I take a look over here, not to be confused with Mike Ditka, famous Chicago Bears quarterback, we have fights to the death. So slave cost is 200, cooldown upon activation is 5 turns, control plus 20. Other slave Ditkas cannot be performed. So it's very similar to what you get with Slaanesh, right? Where you have these 3 actions that you can do, and it locks things out, and it costs I think it's disciples or cults or whatever it is. And then we have the open markets, which generates 1,000 treasury when activated immediately and gives you 2 control. And then this one is growth plus 50, construction cost minus 10% for all buildings. Now, if I click though back on building browser, we can see the other interaction. This is a thing for the new slave mechanic, is that by taking a look up here, you can see slaves, how they're generated, how they're used, buildings, commandments, corruption, missions, and rights. So those are the ways in which you will be using your slaves, more or less. 200, 400, 400, 400 on those for your slave cost, as well as for commandments, which will have certain slave requests for certain ones. But the big thing here is this new building right here. Well, not new building. The artisan house has always existed there. But you can see that when total slaves higher than 50 at the start of the turn, slave income is generated is increased, right? So you get income generated 200 plus slave income generated plus initial 100, all the way up to here for 400 and 300. So it really mirrors that Slaanesh mechanic that has certain buildings that when control is at a certain range, you get certain bonuses. So you're playing a lot more with a very tried and true Slaaneshi type of mechanic built into Dark Elves now, which is pretty cool. So if you were wondering how these new slaves can be, or how the slaves can now be utilized, this is just some ways in which you can do it. But again, you can see here buildings, commandments, corruption, missions, which are like, your little tiny things that say do this or that, and it will cost you slaves, or rights. That's how your slaves work. So that is Morathi. Let's switch on over to Malice. So as of the making of this video, I have not been able to find out any new interactions with Zarkan and the corruption, as noted in the blog. He seems to be able to be possessed just as much as normal. It might be talking about the actual campaign mechanic for possession, which again doesn't seem like it's that much different from the actual Malice Darkblade campaign. So I just wanted to kind of illustrate this here. It might be that when you're actually playing through a more long form game, you are in less full control. You have the capability to swap over to possession. But again, this is me just being transparent, showing you I haven't noticed a whole ton of new different things with the possession or with the corruption types. It seems that no matter what, he still gets a lot of penalties with different corruptions. So keep that in mind. And if you spot something on someone else's Let's Plays or anything like that, please, by all means, let it be known in the comment section below, guys. Making sure that there's as much transparent information out there as possible is always key for me. But again, this is a beta of the beta, so this might not have come into full integration yet or whatever it is. But let's move on over to Rakarth. Sorry, I said Rakarth. It's Rakarth. You know, it's a made-up name, so you tend to forget the actual pronunciation. So here are the new monster pen things that we get for Rakarth. He has these feral bears. You can see the stats over there on the left side of the screen. The feral ice bear gets the chilling aura, as well as woodsman, and it causes fear, as you would imagine, but it also has vanguard deployment with some anti-large capabilities there, just to kind of hover over this and show it off. And a lot of AP too. I mean, that's 35 built-in AP, which is quite nice. With the other one, you're going to be losing that chilling aura. Just to kind of give you a difference, I'll just hover over both. The feral bear has more health, and you're doing less overall damage and charge bonus, less melee attack too. So those also, it's a 16 unit for the feral bear, a 16 model unit, and a 12 model unit for the feral ice bear. So keep that in mind. Then we have these saber tusks over here. You know, they do have rampage. Their weapon strength here as well as 45-25, but a good amount of AP just built into their kit. Just the same saber tusk you would get from the Ogre Kingdoms, maybe a little bit of a stat difference. But just to show this guy off really quick before we pivot now into the Lizardmen. Starting us off with the Lore Master of Sotek himself, we have 10 and 1. Now, his big improvements are now linked to the fact that he gets Regiments of Renown as he levels up, which he did not get before. And if we go into the sacrificial portion, he can now get more blessed spawnings. Where is it? Oh, yeah, unlock blessed spawnings. To quote the actual blog post, be able to use the sacrificial pyramid to generate extra blessed spawning units. So he'll have access to even more blessed spawnings on top of the Regiments of Renown, which is a very nice little power spike for 10 and 1. Keep in mind too, there have been a number of little tiny tweaks when it comes to all the units, and this is something that was actually pointed out in the vampire count section that I didn't go over, and it's because, just being, again, totally transparent, I'm not the best person to go over that. I don't know a lot of the units, balances, and changes. People that would be really good at covering that would be Dov Plays, Turin, Indie Pride, for Milk and Cookies Total War. So make sure you do check those channels out to make sure you're getting any kind of coverage when it comes to unit balancing and all those little tiny things. Unless it's completely laid out for me, I'm pretty dumb to those kind of stuff, that kind of stuff. But that is the mighty 10 and 1. And also too, for a lot of people who have been wondering if their skills have been changed, I've quickly checked just to kind of look over them on the wiki, and I haven't noticed any significant changes for most of the ones we've already gone through, unless it was noted in the blog, and thus I double checked to make sure. So if you're wondering, hey, why aren't you going through all the skills? It's because, like I said, it's probably not changed either enough to be of concern, or it's not changed at all. So let's move on over to Oxyotl. Now for Oxyotl, starting all the way down here in the Southern Chaos Wastes, his improvements are linked to his mission mechanic, Visions of the Old Ones. And to quote the blog post here, he'll be receiving new missions to hunt down and eliminate the new demonic enemies who recently arrived on the Immortal Empires map. And as you can see that right here, we have one to fight and kill things at the Brazen Throne. Now this will scale, so keep that in mind. This is a pretty hefty amount of turns to kill something that's right next door to me, and it's because we are on normal. I think I put this on normal. I don't know. It's whatever the default is for the game by standard. I didn't tweak it. But if I was on legendary, we would have significantly less time. The missions now scale with difficulty to have less time to actually complete the missions or harder, further objectives. So keep that in mind with your next playthrough of Oxyotl. Let's move on over to the Saurus here in Krokgar and Gorok, because they have had some very fun improvements. So for the first of our Saurus bros, we get a revamp to both of the characters, focusing on how they're actually going to be played. Remember, Krokgar is more of a frontier pushing offensive lord versus Gorok, which is more of an individual. It's kind of like a King of the Hill type defensive character. So we're going to find that represented in the new faction effects, lord effects, and the way that Saurus play out as a whole. So right here we have the Last Defender of Zodal, which is going to have an upkeep reduction for armies led by Saurus Old Bloods. Saurus buildings grant additional bonuses to Saurus Scar Veterans and Saurus Old Bloods. Weapon strength plus 1% per character rank for Saurus Scar Veterans and Saurus Old Bloods, which is spicy. Character experience gain plus 30% for Saurus Scar Veterans and Saurus Old Bloods as well. Moving into the actual character profile here for Crocky, we get the experience gain 25% for Warriors and Cold Wind Rider units, as well as campaign effects, minus 15% for upkeep for the Lord's Army and ambush success chance plus 25%. That is represented here, but just wanted to outline all those goodies. For his skills, annihilate the Beastmen, destroy the Skaven, exterminate the Dark Elves. You know, just kind of going through these. Most of these are very much the same, but just to kind of overall go through them. Upkeep reduction for things, spawning of Zodal, and just kind of quickly hovering over this for you guys. You can see it's whatever blessing you wish to choose. And there you go. Now, for the actual... Let's go to Saurus using Spears. So take a look at Primal Instincts now. It happens at 50% or less. I believe in the past it was 25%. And you'll see now that it no longer causes Rampage, but it does increase charge bonus, melee attack, and physical resistance for all Saurus units. So Krokgar is really focused on trying to make much stronger, more impactful units, right? More deadly kind of characters that enables him to have very elite Saurus. And that's kind of just the name of the game here for Big Daddy Croc. And as for the faction mechanic here, you can see if we go right to here, recruitment rank +1 for Saurus Scar Veterans and Saurus Old Bloods faction wide. And for the tier 4 building Temple Guard Barracks, we get a +2 rank for everything. So you can see that those bonuses are just kind of reflected there. And a lot of the other ones get this too. The recruitment of chiefs and unlocks increases hero capacity. The rank increase is the actual one that's linked to Krokgar's faction mechanic. So the hero capacity and the unlock recruitment is default. The rank increase is relegated to the faction. Oh, and just for those wanting to see the landmark, there you go, Golden Tower of the Gods. Let's move over to Gorok, Rockhard, Rock Johnson. So for Gorok, we have a lot of cool stuff. Looking at the faction effects, starts with Croak, nothing new there, and he gets the Rite of Resilience, which has changed. But look at this, bear hit points +500 for all units when defending settlements. I love that. I love that mechanic there. So you're already going to have your pretty beefy Lizardmen be even beefier when they're under the banner of Gorok. Defensive supplies +500 as well. Looking at the actual character's faction leader abilities, unit mass increase and missile resistance increase, as well as protector, which is, you know, because of his, this is that. Also, he starts with all of these goodies here, which is great. Or I'm sorry, not he, but here we go. He starts with all those goodies because he's Croak. We'll go into Croak in just a little bit here because he does have some new stuff. But looking at the rights with the new Rite of Resilience, we get barrier hit points +1,000 for Saurus and Temple Guard. That stacks with his obvious faction mechanic, which would be 1,500 barrier. Good luck taking out a settlement with those dudes. Also, they get the new immune to contact effects ability, meaning that they will not be able to be applied, or poison won't be able to apply to them. Frostbite, any of the new ones from Slaanesh. So a really nice ability here, and also expert charge defense for Saurus and Temple Guard unit. In the past, this gave you Unbreakable, but I find this to be way more beneficial. It's pretty spicy, and only at 2,000 gold, lasting for 5 turns, and a 15-turn recycle. It's a great way to get out of a really tight pinch. Now, Croak, just like Mazdamundi, who is our next character to talk about, does have some changes to things. Of course, I'm just going to hover over these for anyone who wants to see if anything has changed with them. But really the big thing that we're going to be getting with Croak now is the ability that he has a barrier. That is going to be pretty nice. Also, with the new magic system coming in with Warhammer 3, things are pretty different with him overall. Do I see his barrier here? Where do I see his barrier? He's got a barrier. It's somewhere in here. Spell resistance, missile resistance. Let's just swipe through all this and find it. But he's got a barrier, I swear to God. Interesting. I don't see it represented here. Usually it's an actual thing that shows you, hey, I've got a barrier. Huh, maybe it's actual skill. But he does have different skills too, so we're going to go through those all right now. So Winds of Magic Power Reserve 10, enemy Winds of Magic Reduction, and then Winds of Magic Power Reserve. There it is, Unfathomable. That's what gives him the barrier. I was like, I thought he started with the barrier. So there, Unfathomable Presence is the barrier. Harrowing Scrutiny is going to give him control increase as well as cause terror. Transcendent Healing gives him passive regen, which is great. And then Higher State of Consciousness, barrier replenishment delay minus 50% for him at rank 20, which is just lovely. Deliverance of Eats of the Pizza, going through these real fast, just hovering over them for you guys. Then we get into Greater Arcane Conduit. He'll get access to Roiling Skies, Exorcism, and then the Shield of Sapphire for all three of those magics he can take advantage of. For his abilities down here, kind of nothing new. Training, Replenish, Stimulate Growth, Boost Income, and Colossal Deliverance, which allows him to damage the walls of a certain settlement, which can be done to Transcendental State, which reduces the Colossal Deliverance cooldown by 50%, or Ultimate Deliverance, which damages walls, buildings, and lowers the settlement level of the target settlement. So that's kind of like your rank 20 coup de grace that you can kind of get. Then Supreme Shield of the Old Ones has a nice damage resistance now of 40%, all the way up with cooldown reduction at level 3, which is quite nice. Greater Ward of the Old Ones has corruption reduction as well as a ward save increase for the hero's army, which is just juicy. Eternal Guardians, first spawning control and research rate increase. Irrepressible, rune recovery time -5. Telekinesis 15%, and then lastly protection of the Old Ones. So this is the new Lord Croak skill tree. Next up we're going to talk about Mazdamundi and his new skills, as well as how his new skill range kind of plays out. Making sure I didn't miss anything over there. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's move on over to Mazdamundi. Looking to buy a new car? Come on down to Mazdamundi's dealership and buy yourself a used Mazda. Let's take a look over here at the skills of Lord Mazdamundi. And if we go down into the traits for Venerated, we get the big stuff that helps, that's just been added for him. Targeting range increase of 50% for all of his spells, which is lovely. Winds of Magic Power Reserve Capacity plus 15, unit experience gain plus 50, upkeep minus 50% for Temple Guard units, and miscast base chance minus 50%. Now he gets the same exact skill line right here that Croak did. So 800 barrier points, that miscast base chance minus 40%, almost threw up right there. Control plus 3, attribute cause terror, that passive regen, and then another 50% reduction to his barrier replenishment delay. He gets lock, telekinesis, nothing new right there. But then Eldritch reserves of Eldritch Energy, Winds of Magic Power Reserve plus 10 minimum. Becalming Cogitation, which helps with the reduction there for the change when increasing. Winds of Magic Power Reserve change plus 20% when increasing. And then Focus of Mysteries, which we've seen before. And then Ruination of Cities. Again, we've seen those two before, but just kind of, they are now in a different placement in his skill line. So you see now that the Slann actually feel like the Slann, I think, in a pretty cool way. I would like to have access to all the spells of magic in some way, shape, or form, other than this kind of weird custom kit. But these are all still pretty strong spells here that Mazda gets to have access to here, just to show off Shield of the Old Ones. He's always had this, but just to kind of show off how that works now as far as where these are on the respective skill lines. So now into our last and probably one of the bigger changes here in Nakai the Wanderer. So for Nakai, his big focus is of course on both his economy, the Alliance, and the Temples of the Old Ones. So I'm just going to quickly scrub over these really fast to show you how these have changed. For the most part, you'll get the similar route, where you get blessed spawnings, you'll get some technology increases onto things, but I just want to just show these off very quickly. And I'll just go over here to Itzel. And just the same thing as always, you have to take over locations, destroy those locations, and then raise them up as a Temple of the Old One, going towards the faction that will then kind of, not necessarily follow you around, but they will hold all the buildings for you, because you are still a Horde army with Nakai the Wanderer. So just kind of going through those real fast. And then for Nakai himself, things for the most part are very much, that was great, that's up close and personal. They're very much the same. You just kind of show that off really quick for anyone who is worried about it or curious about it. There you go. And skills too, very much the same. Just kind of bumping over those. The big changes though outside of that are with his economy. If I go over to the technology tree, you can see that things are a lot different. Things are mainly aimed at trying to make his economy better, because his economy was always a big suffering point for Nakai. Again, to quote the blog, including tech tree updates to boost his economy. So just kind of going over some of these really quick. Not all of them obviously have been changed. No, those are all mainly military. The ones that cost you the old one's favor have been tooled the most, I believe. So just kind of doing that. And the big thing on all these is tribute from vassals has been increased by 5% for each one of these sequences you go down. So they are pretty important, right? So I think that those kind of give you an idea that, hey, you know, now I can get a lot more tribute from my vassal. The vassal becomes a lot more important now. And with the new vassal system, of course, they are going to benefit from the ability to set targets, request armies, outposts, and ally missions, all that kind of stuff with their set vassal army, the Defenders of the Great Plan, that Nakai will always have access to. By the way, this is the new UI here for allies and vassals, which is just kind of quickly you can kind of jump into, take a look at, take advantage of. And again, these guys are naturally going to benefit from that quite immensely. So we've gone over everyone now except for Norsca. So let's jump into a Norsca campaign with Wulfric the Wanderer to see how things have changed. Now the biggest thing with Norsca is, of course, the change that they are now a occupation faction, meaning that they can just take things as they wish. Before they were kind of limited in where they could build buildings and what have you. As you can see with the World Walkers, their climates are pretty much everything, right? Frozen, Wasteland, Mountains, Chaos Wasteland, or Chaotic Wastelands, Temperate, Temperate Island, Savannah, and Jungle. The only thing that are unpleasant are magical forests and deserts, which they're probably not going to be close to anyway, with uninhabitable being ocean. So you can see that they're definitely changed around. Just looking at the base building browser, you can see that pretty much everything here is at the monolith of Bjorkil Bloody Hand. You can take advantage of a lot of these. And just to kind of show the software for anyone that wants to see it. But also, they get a big change to commandments, which I can go ahead and hover over here. And you can see that they can summon the chieftains. They can erase the palisades, giving them campaign movement range and attrition. Marauders to builders, growth, increased construction, cost reduction for buildings, and then venerate the 4, chaos, undivided corruption, which is worth pointing out. Enables attrition for non-chaos worshipping armies, control +7, all other types of corruption -2. Because that then plays into the new devotion of the gods mechanic for them. So if they were to devote themselves over here to the Hound, let's go all the way to level 3. They now get access to the Exalted Champion of Khorne, Kilgore Slaymaim, who will be recruited to fight for your faction. Unit experience +100 per turn, income from all buildings 60%, and weapon strength 10% for melee infantry units. Now, Champion of the Eagle will get you the Lord of Change, Azric the Maze Keeper, as well as research rate +20%, chance of wins and magic 20%, and income from all buildings 60%. Looking at the Champion of the Crow, we get the Exalted Great Unclean One, Burple Smirk with Spew Pit, which is such a lovely name. Wound recovery time -4 for all characters, casualty replenishment rate 20%, and income from all buildings 60%, because that is what Papa Nurgle loves, those coins to rub on his belly. Champion of the Serpent, a specialist chaos sorcerer, Kihar the Tormentor, will be recruited to fight for your faction. Lord recruitment rank 5. Upkeep -10%, income from all buildings 60%. You're probably wondering though, where did the Iceforge Legion go? Well, that is now just a standard regiment of renown. Where are they? Can't tell from the little pictures. There it is, Iceforge Legion. So at rank 30, you just get access to them by default, which is quite nice. Outside of that too, we have iron as a resource that these characters, that Norsca can now, not iron, but all resources Norsca can now just take advantage of and make unique buildings for. So you'll be able to take advantage of those like you were not able to do in the past. Now keep in mind too, there is an actual Norscan update coming. Right now, that does not exist. There is no Norscan Old World update. They said that it is coming, but this is just kind of a little bit of an up to snuff for the faction to bring them up to par with Warhammer 3 factions right now. Also, there's the new capital targets ability, With new forces of order come new cities to raise for unique benefits. The Kurgan hordes had never taken Wei Jin, but perhaps they only lacked a unifying iron fist. So this allows you to just kind of be able to focus down these capital buildings with a unending tide of Norscans. So that covers all of our major faction updates. There are little things here and there. Like, for example, if I were to go all the way over here to the Cathay, we can see, where's Cathay? Like Nakai, right over here, these are Wood Elves. Where is it? I think it's, yeah, there's Wood Elves over here now. Yeah, Jungle Sichuan. This is a Wood Elf location. So this allows for the Wood Elves to come over here, probably perhaps via the world routes. So there are some little changes, things that are kind of hidden around with the High Elves, the Wood Elves, the Dwarfs, all this stuff that are not pivotal changes and big things, but there will be things that you'll find in your own campaigns that I didn't go into. And I think that that's kind of half the fun of playing a brand new content drop, is finding stuff that you maybe didn't get spoiled for you by some of the content creators, because we're trying to cover every little thing, right? So there are little nuances I didn't bother to go into because I want you guys to at least be able to experience some stuff on your own. But if there's anything that I missed that you noticed in another playthrough, like I said, go ahead and let it be known in the comment section below. And if you have any questions about the DLC or the Immortal Empires, again, let it be known below and I will answer to the best of my ability. We have a stream starting off here today where I will give away a copy of the Champions of Chaos DLC, and I'll be streaming a Imric campaign as per the poll we did on the channel. So if you want to see that, just stay tuned. It'll be we usually stream about 10 or 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for about 3 or 4 hours depending on the day. So we'll be playing through tons of Imric on the channel. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Be on the lookout for plenty more Immortal Empires and Champions of Chaos coverage as the days and weeks unfold as we get closer to August 23rd, the launch date of the Immortal Empires Beta. But as always, have a good one and take care.